Hey guys, Just Under Magic here, and as promised, I'm going through this wonderful document that Wizards, I guess, leaked. I didn't say anything about a theft or a hack or, I don't know. In the absence of an excuse, we have to assume that once again it was Wizards' massive incompetence. Or the Chinese translation team. I mean, we have no idea. Give us some damn details if you want me to stop taking a dump on you, Wizards. Anyway, as you saw in the title, there is a new mechanic in Dominaria, which, I mean, duh, but it's called Saga. And this is actually, like, cool, because, I mean, it kind of sort of references, like, outside the game, and the cards are less about, like, really what's going on in the set and on the plane right now, which I think it's almost like a fourth wall break, so stylistically I think it was questionable. Oh, unless the storyline involves time travel, which it just probably almost does at this point. So this mechanic is supposed to be like historical references to stuff that happened way before you probably started playing Magic, which is why I think this is like kind of dumb, but it's like the mother of all throwbacks. So if you appreciate it, great. If you don't, you just won't know what the card is doing and whatever. I mean, everybody's going to be more focused while playing the game on like literally what the card does to the board state, not, oh yeah, I remember when that happened in that book that I totally read 20 years ago. But anyway, from a functional standpoint, here's how it works, like super literally. Okay, so you throw out an enchantment, and they're all enchantments, by the way. So dust off your copy of Demystify. Oh, and just right now, Lost Legacy, going through the roof. I'm calling it right now, Lost Legacy is going to spike when Dominaria comes out, because you're going to have to stop these, and these are non-artifacts. Anyway, there's a card called History of Benalia, for example. It's one generic and then white, so 3 costs. It's an enchantment hyphen saga, so saga is the subtype and enchantment is... Do they actually call them super types? That's what it should be called, because it's sub and super, but we'll just say the type. And it says, as this saga enters the battlefield, and after your draw step, add a lore counter to it. So we've seen lore counters before, so this isn't that new. And then sacrifice it after 3, which I'm sure is not the exact reminder text. So it enters with 1 lore counter on the battlefield and then immediately has an ability go off. So it's basically enchantments with triggered abilities. So it's not really new, it's just they're classifying it. So it's kind of like Menace, where they used to spell it out, but now they're like, yeah, let's make it a thing. I mean, they've even made spells with abilities before, so, you know, whatever. So when it enters battlefield, 1 lore counter, boom, trigger, create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance, and then at your, let's see, it says, wait, as this saga enters and after your draw step. So in other words, during your upkeep, I mean, why would they not phrase it that way? This document goes to the judges as far as I know. Anyway, then, okay, 2, create another 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance, which is already pretty good value for 3 white. I mean, it's about on par with like that vampire drop, I guess, but they're 2/2 white knights. But get this, okay, 3 knights you control get +2 attack, +1 toughness until the end of turn. So those 2 that you just created are basically 4 3s for 1 turn. Now, you can't control the timing on this unless there's an interactivity with lore counters, but I feel like there won't be. It'll probably just have to play itself out. Maybe you could effectively like rewind it, and that's like the time travel part, but I feel like these just are time bombs, basically. You drop them in, and they just tick, tick, tick. Okay, boom, now it went off, and you guys know I love cards like that. It does kind of enable people to play like really super degenerate crap where they're like covering, you know, a couple little particular cards with mountains of control spells, which is just toxic. It's just not fun to play against decks like that. Now that said, I've built decks like that, and remember Fretwork Colony? It starts out as a 1/1, then becomes a 2/2, then 3/3, then 4/4, then 5/5 for free every single upkeep. I mean, 2 of my favorite cards, Scoot Mob and, boy, if it's my favorite, I should be remembered, Dragon Master Outcast. Those are time bombs. I mean, even just the Megamorph ability, or especially Monstrous, where you're just like, hey, you know that the second I get that much mana, it's getting monstrous and this is going to get real bad for you. Even just Planeswalkers at all getting to their ultimate. I mean, people really like the whole, I'm going to throw this out here and now we play the waiting game. And can I cover it? Can I not? And then if they manage to undo it, they destroy your Saga card, then okay, whatever. I mean, it's already like probably a turn or 2 later, so it just set you back a little bit. It didn't completely ruin it. Now, if somebody casts a negate to kill your combo and now you have nothing left in hand and your chances of reloading the combo are 0, that's not really fun for anybody. I mean, so this is like the whole I'm playing chess thing where it's like I do a move, oh, and then you undo my move. Okay, but the game's not over. It was not a glass cannon. So that's why overall these Saga cards sound amazing. So super specifically, the way that this is like flavored out is it says, okay, as a Saga enters the battlefield, its controller puts a lore counter on it as your pre-combat main phase begins. And then they say in parentheses immediately after draw step. I just realized that I think earlier I mistakenly said that upkeep comes after draw. It does not. So in other words, these are like the siege cards, which those were amazing too. And those were kind of time bombs. I mean, there's literally a card called Ratchet Bomb. You tap it once per turn to put a charge counter on it, and then you can tap it and sacrifice it to destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Ratchet Bomb. I love that card. Although, in my opinion, it should have said and lower, but, you know, that might have been a little much. So anyway, okay, you put a lore counter on it when it enters battlefield or at the start of your pre-combat main phase. So that's kind of when you would want it to happen anyway. So they say on the text box there's going to be like a symbol next to each ability, and they're going to be called chapter abilities, which makes sense. It's supposed to be like literally the storyline. So, by the way, adding a lore counter is not like it's not respondable and it doesn't use the stack, which is interesting, but the accompanying triggered ability does go on the stack. That's a bit of a rules distinction, doesn't really do anything for gameplay, and honestly, even if they said that the ability didn't go on the stack somehow, it was like split second or something, you could just destroy the enchantment during like their upkeep or whatever, so, you know, whatever. Now this is odd. It says a chapter ability is a triggered ability that triggers when a lore counter that is put on the Saga causes the number of lore counters on the Saga to become equal to or greater than the ability's chapter number. So theoretically, in the example up above, you would get 1 and 2, but then you'd also get the first one when it goes to 3. I don't think they phrased that correctly, because looking at how it's written, I just don't think that's how that would work. Oh, in fact, in the next bullet point, they contradict themselves and clarify it. They say a chapter ability doesn't trigger if a lore counter is put on a Saga that already had a number of lore counters greater than or equal to the chapter's number. For example, the third lore counter put on a Saga causes the 3 chapter ability to trigger, but 1 and 2 won't trigger again. Well, that's good that they clarified that, because they literally said the polar opposite of that up above. But I guess they had to phrase it that way because you could maybe add 2 lore counters. So they must have some kind of time accelerant. Like every time you would add a lore counter, add 2 instead, and then you can backtrack to one that you haven't hit yet or whatever. If a chapter ability goes on the stack and then somebody gets rid of the Saga, it's still on the stack. No news there. That's how everything works. If multiple go off at a time, which would pretty much always happen, you can, or the controller, the owner, whatever, chooses the order. No surprise there. You have to choose targets at resolution time serially, not simultaneously. No surprise there, that's just how the rules work. The fact that they have to remind judges of this is sad. Oh, here we go. If counters are removed from a Saga, the appropriate chapter abilities will trigger again when the Saga receives lore counters again. But removing them won't cause like an earlier chapter to immediately trigger. So we will get to mess with the lore counters. I would actually prefer that we didn't. You know, knowing almost nothing about the set, I would still just really not want that to be a thing. I just want to drop a time bomb out there, and if they can literally remove the enchantment, like, at all, great. But if they have something that says, oh, well, you know, they can only trigger 1 Saga per upkeep, or they're limited to 1 lore counter, oh, now they slowed me down, like, whatever. I'd rather just have a reliable time bomb. I mean, why can't I have that, Wizards? Oh, and they made it even more boring, by the way. Once the number of lore counters on a Saga is greater than or equal to the greatest number among its chapter abilities in Dominaria, specifically, so take that for what it is, this will always be 3. So, no more powerful 5 counters, and no quicker, weaker, earlier 2 counters. So, that sucks. But whatever, I mean, 3 turns is a long time, but it's also, like, kind of not. So if they're all locked into 3, like, that's the number I would probably choose. But it would be nice if some of them had, like, a massive final chapter that's equivalent to, like, a 7, 8, or 9 cost sorcery. And, like, if they have 5 turns to stop you. But I feel like there's probably a way to dick around with, you know, lower counters and add more than you would normally be able to and, like, duplicate them and stuff. So, you know, we'll see. Like, maybe that's not such a good idea. I mean, I've literally seen one card so far from the set. But anyway, basically, you get to the last chapter, it goes on the stack, and then you sack it. You sack the Saga card itself. So, to me, this sounds neat. I mean, it sounds like a really, really, really cool mechanic, because it's not like, whoa, that's overpowered, and it's not like, whoa, my whole deck has to be built around that. And you guys are probably thinking, well, that sounds odd. Why wouldn't you want to build your whole deck around a new mechanic? Like Devotion. Devotion decks were amazing. You know, I wanted to use nothing but Devotion. Woo! But, it's almost more useful and more likely to be used in like Commander and Modern if it's just, here's a standalone thing, and if you like one of the cards, you can throw it into whatever. Just like Fatal Push. Like, oh, cool, it's an early game restrictive, kill spell, removal spell, whatever. Yeah, it uses Revolt, but you're not like, oh, it's Revolt, I have to use Revolt. No, it's just a neat card. You can just throw it into whatever. So this, it sounds like, hey, you could take a Saga card and throw it into Commander. You could take an existing deck they have right now, do Dinosaurs +1 Saga. I mean, I think that would be cool. So this already is extremely likely, in my opinion, to be a very, very, very popular mechanic. Like, extremely. Now, it sounds a little bit slow for Modern, but it sounds like it would just be the absolute king of Commander, because you want to drop something and get value out of it. You want it to have recurring triggers that you basically don't have to pay for at all, because that's the other thing is recurring triggers you don't have to pay for or tap or worry or do anything. That's value right there. And like I said, everybody loves a good time bomb where you're just like, ho, 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 timer's ticking. One more lore counter and your crap's gonna get blown up, man. You better deal with this. And on top of it, if you're one of, the people who knows like old school Magic lore like really well, like for example, Aether Hub, the YouTube channel, not the card. Then on top of you could be like, oh, I get it. It's a reference to that, and that's why it's doing this. Oh, that's cool. And I'll just be sitting there like, who the hell are these people? Whatever, the card rules. So what do you think of Sagas? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Do you just want to see more of it until you make a decision? I mean, obviously, all the Saga cards could suck, but I mean, come on, really? Do you really think that would happen? I mean, Wizards would never design a mechanic for an entire set and then just make it just miserable, just like completely unplayable and just weak and just, okay, Constellation. Constellation was terrible, I'll give you that one. Bestow wasn't, though. And Devotion wasn't, throwing that one out there. So it should be interesting. So this is like the first thing I read out of this whole document, and it sounds promising. So big thumbs up to Wizards on this one, except not really. I'm converting it to 2 middle fingers because they probably shouldn't have leaked this. Oh, little PR advice, because apparently you don't have a PR department. Like, it must be some kind of religious view that you can't have a PR department. It's like against your beliefs or something. Because if you had a PR department, like, a lot of your staff members would get their Twitter deleted. I'm just saying. Okay, PR tip for you. If somebody leaked this and it was no fault of your own, it was not like a widespread or idiotic like company mistake, you might want to mention that. Because then we'll stop thinking it was your fault and your incompetence. Just saying. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.